One of the greatest tests of Christian character is, how does a Christian react when he's wronged? Human nature is to retaliate. That's not God's way. This is Wayne Berger. Let's meditate on the Word. How should a Christian react toward others who are hostile to Christianity? Unfortunately, we're seeing more and more hostility toward Christians and Christian character. And the world paints the Christian as the bad guy. How do we handle that? I think Paul gave the answer in Romans 12, 9 through 16. I'm simply going to read those passages and talk about each of those ways he says to handle that. In Romans 12, 9, he said, "Let love be without hypocrisy." We have to be sincere. People have to know that we're genuine. We cannot and should not put on the airs of something that we're not. People can easily tell the genuine from the fake. And we need to be Christians in this hostile world that has love without hypocrisy. We truly love them. We do not agree with their actions. We do not accept their actions, but we must manifest love for the sinner. And they need to know that, and that it's not hypocritical on our part, but that we genuinely love them and care for them. Paul also said in Romans 12, 9, abhor what is evil. Abhor, that's a strong word. You know, we say, I don't like evil. Well, that's good, but that's not strong like abhor. When we abhor something, we can't stand it. We can't be around it. In a sense, it makes us sick. Well, think about the world in which we live. It's filled with evil. We've come to accept it. Paul said we need to abhor it, hate it. It makes us feel terrible. We feel terrible to be around it. We feel terrible for the folks who are in it. We need to abhor evil. I've given this illustration many times, but I think it helps us to see. When you walk into a dark room, let's say a theater, and the lights are already off, when you walk in, you can't see, and you almost have to just stop before you find a seat where you can sit. But the longer you're there, the lighter the room becomes. It's not really becoming lighter. Our eyes are accepting the darkness and are adjusting to it. And so it is in this world in which we live. We have come to accept the evil. Paul said we need to abhor the evil. We need to make a clear distinction between what God says and what the world says. What God condemns, we need to condemn. What God upholds, we need to uphold. And the world needs to be able to see that in us, to know this man will not stand for evil. He's not going to support it. He's going to abhor it. A third statement Paul makes in Romans 12, 9, cling to what is good. There's the positive as opposed to the negative. The negative is you abhor evil. The positive is you cling to what's good. We live in a wicked, corrupt world, but there are some things in this world that are good. There are a lot of good people. There are a lot of evil people, but there are also a lot of good people. We ought to cling to those good people, identify with those good people, maybe be able to help them bring them into the church. But we need to see the things that are good in our society and support them. We need to love those things that are good, cling to those things that are good. Let people know where we stand. I abhor evil. I cleave to that which is good. Paul also said, be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Be devoted to one another. Now, we as Christians should be more devoted to Christian brethren, but we ought to be devoted to anybody who's striving to live the Christian life. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. That brotherly love is that word Philadelphia. Philadelphia, as a sports town, is not really known for its brotherly love. They don't always display this brotherly love. But Paul says, you be devoted to one another and manifest this in brotherly love. To be devoted to them means I'm here to serve you. See, part of the problem in the world and maybe in the church, we want people to serve us. God says, no, I want you to serve others. You be devoted to others. Don't worry about what they're going to do for you. Too many people have had the same wrong attitude about the church. They look for a church that says, what can you do for me? That's the wrong attitude. We ought to say, what can I do to serve this church? So he says, be devoted to one another in brotherly love. In verse 10, he goes on to say, give preference to one another in honor. Give preference to one another in honor. Recognize the other person. Acknowledge that other person's good. Give them glory and praise and honor rather than expect them to give you glory, praise, or honor. Give preference to one another in honor, recognizing the good they do, recognizing the character they have. We ought to get in the practice of expressing our appreciation for people. It might be through a little thank you note. It might simply be by using the phrase thank you, or a phrase saying, I appreciate you and what you do and what you stand for. Appreciation goes farther and helps overcome the criticism. There are always people who criticize, but there are not as many people who commend and who give honor in preference to people. We need to be that kind of person, particularly in this hostile world. You see, in this hostile world, they're doing their best to destroy us. That's what Satan wants. How do we handle that hostile world? Well, we're going to have our love without hypocrisy. We're going to abhor what is evil, and we're going to cling to what is good. And we're going to be devoted to one another in honor. We need to be devoted to those who are good. In 12:11, he says, not lagging behind in diligence. Diligence means we're steadfast. We are dependable. We are people who are going to accomplish what they say they're going to accomplish. They're people who are going to be people of their word. If they say it, it will happen. We need to be diligent that way. People who are known for their diligence. It may be tough. It takes effort. It sometimes is not on my schedule. It is going to be sometimes face a lot of opposition, but our diligence must be manifested. He says, don't lag behind in that diligence. Don't slack off. Don't be a slacker. Maintain that diligence. In verse 11 of chapter 12, he also says, fervent in spirit. The key thought of the word fervent is fire. Be on fire in the spirit. Our spirit should be fervent, alive, active, positive. It's unfortunate that some people are so negative that when we're around them, we just feel the negativity. It sort of drags us down. Don't be that kind of person. Overcome that kind of person. Be fervent in spirit. In 12:11, he also says, serving the Lord. There's where our fervor should be. And we can serve the Lord by gathering to worship every Sunday. We can serve the Lord also by serving others. As we manifest the love of Christ to our fellow man. We are serving the Lord. That's the reason Paul, as he spoke in Ephesians 2 about the worker, he said, don't be a serve with eye service. He's talking to the laborer. And he said, don't just work when the boss is around. You be a faithful worker when the boss is not around. Don't just be an eye server and serve when it looks good, and when they're not around, you don't do much. No, he said, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. And then 12:12, rejoicing in hope. Hope, in biblical terms, is desire with expectation. When we say, I hope it doesn't rain today, it is a wish, it's a maybe, it's a possibility. When the Bible uses the word hope, it's not a probability, it's a certainty. And so he said, I want you to rejoice in that hope. And Paul also said in Ephesians 4:4, we have one hope. That one hope is to go to heaven. He said, rejoicing in that hope. Rejoicing, it doesn't matter what kind of hardships we go through. If we'll keep that eternal reward before us, we'll rejoice. The difficulty may not go away. The difficulty may continue for a long time. But our hope should enable us to go through that tribulation. And then he says, persevering in tribulation. If we have that hope before us, we can endure whatever we go through. That's the reason he followed that rejoicing in hope with the phrase persevering. That means keep on keeping on. Don't let anything stop you. Persevere in tribulation. God, in his word, tells us that Christians will be persecuted, that Christians will have hard times, that the world will oppose us, that Satan will attack us, that we will sometimes feel alone. But he said, you just keep persevering in that tribulation. And then chapter 12, verse 12, he may give us part of the answer for that, devoted to prayer. We may feel alone, but we've always got God who will listen. We make our presentation before him through our mediator, Jesus Christ, and said, let us come boldly before the throne of grace that we may find mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Hebrews 4:14 through 16. Devoted into prayer. We need to begin the day with prayer. We need to end the day with prayer. We need in the middle of the day to pray. Devoted to prayer. Then verse 13 says, contributing to the needs of the saints. There are Christians who have needs. There are people who are not well off. They struggle with making enough money to live. They may live in poor conditions, struggle to make that living. We need to take notice of those folks and do what we can to help them. Paul also exhorted in Ephesians 4:28, let him that stole steal no more, or rather let him labor with his hands that which is good, that he may have to give to him that hath need. Why do you have the job you have? To help somebody else. Yes, I know. The job you have is to support yourself and to support your family. But we also ought to be able to look around and recognize the needs of others and do what we can to help those folks. There are lots of people around us that need our help. Paul said in 12:13, practicing hospitality. Hospitality. It is the idea of inviting folks in. It was a great practice in the biblical times because they didn't have good hotels and inns in which to stay. And as people traveled, they needed a place to spend the night. And quite often, it was in the home of a Christian who was practicing hospitality. We need to practice that hospitality today. We live in a world that sort of isolates from everybody. We sort of get in our house. We don't go out. We build walls around our houses. We don't go out. And so we isolate. Hospitality says we're going to reach out. We're going to invite in. We're going to mix and mingle with people. People need people. It's not good to be alone. This, I know, is not what God had in mind when he said in Genesis 2:18, it's not good for man to be alone. And yet the same principle is true today. We need people around us. It sharpens our minds. It renews our spirits. It gives us a conversation. It enables us to expand our thoughts and to serve others. So he says, practice hospitality. Verse 14 says, bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. Well, there's a challenge for us. When people mistreat us, how do we react? He said, I want you to bless those that persecute you. Ask a blessing upon them. Ask God to bless their lives. Ask God to help them to see truth. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. It is so easy when people are mistreated to curse them. It is so easy to wish bad things on those who mistreat us. No, he didn't say wish for bad things. He said, bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. In 12:15, Paul says, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Remember, we're taught this context is, how is the Christian to behave in a hostile world? Well, we need to rejoice with those who rejoice. Sometimes that's harder to do than weeping with those who weep. It's hard for us to rejoice and see somebody advancing when we don't get to advance. It's hard to see them get that job promotion when I didn't get that job promotion. We rejoice with those who rejoice. That's probably the more difficult task we have, is to really rejoice when somebody else is blessed. And then, of course, the other part of that is weep with those that weep. That's a little easier. It's easy to cry with those who are crying. It shows compassion. It shows that we're striving to understand. It shows us that we feel for them, that we have empathy and compassion. The shortest verse of the Bible is not there just to be the shortest verse. It is Jesus wept. It is him weeping with those who weep. He came to the home of Mary and Martha, where their brother Lazarus had died. They were weeping, and he wept with them. You and I need to rejoice with those that rejoice. We also need to cry with those who are crying. In 12:16, Paul said, be of the same mind toward one another. We need to be in unity. We need to strive to have camaraderie, and in the church especially. We need to be supportive of one another, putting our minds together, united in one cause, the cause of Christ. 12:16, he said, do not be haughty in mind. It's easy to become arrogant. When we look around us and see people who have less talent, when we see people who are less fortunate monetarily, when we see people who are struggling, it's easy to become haughty and think about how much greater I am. No, that's not the Christian attitude. The Christian attitude is, do not be haughty in mind, but humble your mind. And then that next verse, or next part of that verse in 12:16 says, associate with the lowly. There are people in our communities who are outcast. It may be because they're a recovered alcoholic. It may be because they're addicted to drugs. It may be, as we look at them, they're crying out for attention for some way. He said, do not be haughty in mind. associate with the lowly. We need to reach out to these people. I think quite often when we see people with strange hairdos and strange tattoos and strange practices, it's because they're crying out for attention. They need someone to love them, to take an interest in them, to manifest their care about that person. And so he says, associate with the lowly. And lastly, he said, do not be wise in your own estimation. It's easy to exalt ourselves, our own knowledge, our own condition, our own life, our own lifestyle, and to look down on those who are less fortunate. Do not be wise in your own estimation. Let's be humble of mind. Paul, as he closes the book of Romans, tells the Christian how to behave in a hostile world. Are we practicing that? Thanks for joining us this week and spending time in God's Word. Special thanks to Matt Graham, John Kuckelman, and Lightway Media for recording, producing, and making this podcast possible. If you're ever in the Littleton, New Hampshire area, we'd love to have you join us for worship and Bible study on Sunday afternoons at 4 at the Senior Center. You're always welcome. For more information about this podcast, visit lightwaymedia.com/meditating on the Word and find a link there to email me to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter with more information you can use in your personal Bible study. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on your favorite podcast app so that you never miss an episode. And if today's message encouraged you, share it with someone else and consider leaving a review. It helps others find us too. Until next week, keep meditating on the Word.